Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today I had the opportunity to go watch the All-22 film for the Pittsburgh Steelers and their tough loss versus the Seattle Seahawks. And a lot of Steelers fans are asking, what the hell went wrong? Well, today I'm going to be breaking down what I saw on the Steelers film, some of the things that are going wrong, and then my suggestions for how to fix those things that are going wrong, especially on the Steelers defense right now. And then Pittsburgh just caught two extremely lucky breaks on the injury front here. I'm going to explain what those two are at the end of today's show, so make sure you guys stick around. But before we get into the content, get down there in the comments section and let me know. What's one thing that Pittsburgh can do to make this team better right now? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. What is your suggestion to help this team get better heading into Week 3 versus the New England Patriots? So now let's get into my film takeaways here from this tough loss. 31-17, some fluky mistakes from Pittsburgh that I don't expect in future weeks. And without those fluky mistakes, the Steelers are actually a lot more competitive in this football game than I think a lot of Steelers fans are giving them credit for. They caused 2 turnovers. They should have been 2 for 2 in the red zone if it wasn't for a fluke kind of a mistake from Calvin Austin getting in the way of what would have been a touchdown reception for Pat Freiermuth from Aaron Rodgers. And Jaylen Warren, of course, balled out. All right, so there's good things, and then we'll get into the good here. But what every Steelers fan wants to know about is, what went wrong, all right? And we'll start with the negatives here, starting what happened to the run defense, because this is what is probably the most discussed topic on Steelers Twitter right now. And in my opinion, guys, both Keanu Benton and Y.A. Black are playing out of position, and I think they need to switch positions moving forward. And I think that one switch alone will make the Steelers' run game better. Keanu Benton, in my opinion, guys, he is not a nose tackle. And this is something we've talked about many times on the show, especially last week, where Benton is a penetrating type of player, with fast hands, with really good first step. That's what he was at Wisconsin, and he had a bunch of TFLs, a bunch of disruptive plays like that. And when you put him at the nose tackle, he takes on so many more double teams. You ask him to hold the line of scrimmage more. And that's just not what he does. And in this game, guys, when Benton was asked to be a disruptor and shoot gaps, he actually had some really nice plays, and he disrupted the run game a little bit. But also, when you asked him to stay put and kind of hold that line, he got pushed backwards on almost every single occasion. But then you got Y.A. Black, who actually had a couple of nose tackle reps in this game, and he is absolutely holding that line, all right? So it wasn't a perfect game from Y.A. Black. He's a rookie. But at 330 plus pounds, he just has more functional strength than Keanu Benton does. So I really do think Y.A. Black gives this team the best chance at success at nose tackle. And if you put Black at nose tackle and you allow Keanu Benton to play more disruptively, I think that's another added bonus to the Steelers' run game, because we saw Benton be a disruptive force at times and in moments on the film in Week 2 versus the Seattle Seahawks. You take him out of that nose tackle role, I think that already fixes a lot of problems here at the Steelers' defensive line. The question is, will Mike Tomlin and Teryl Austin actually make the switch? And then another thing, guys, that I think has really held the Steelers' run defense back, especially these first 2 weeks, is Peyton Wilson. It just looks lost out there, man. He didn't play a lot on early downs last year. Landon Roberts played mostly on early downs as kind of like the designated run defender in the inside linebacker room, and Wilson was kind of more of a blitzer and a coverage linebacker last season. And Wilson honestly wasn't a great run defender in college. That wasn't really what he was known for. But Wilson is playing super aggressively and a little bit too aggressively. He's trying to be the hero out there. Now, it doesn't help when Keanu Benton's being pushed into your lap, all right? I'll acknowledge that. But also, he's taking terrible pursuit angles on the outside, on off-tackle runs, all right? So, I don't want to hear that it's all Keanu Benton's fault why Peyton Wilson is taking these terrible pursuit angles to running backs. I mean, he was the reason why Kenneth Walker scored on that 3rd and 19, that 3rd and goal situation that gave the Seattle Seahawks their 2-touchdown advantage in the fourth quarter, because he took a terrible, over-aggressive pursuit angle and he completely whiffed on him. And you just can't do that, man. As a linebacker, sometimes you just got to know when to play a little bit smarter, when to go out and make a little bit more of an aggressive move. Patrick Queen, I think, did actually a pretty good job of that yesterday. But Peyton Wilson has been consistently out of position, which has created some really big holes for opposing run games to exploit, especially for slashing type of running backs like Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall, who have had over 100 yards rushing in these first 2 weeks. And my solution to this, guys, is I would play Cole Holcomb on early downs, all right? And when Malik Harrison comes back, I would consider playing him a little bit more on early downs. Harrison's a really good run defender. He's not as good as Landon Roberts was, but he's still pretty darn good. And Holcomb, even though he didn't play like perfectly, there was one play particularly in pass coverage where it was a 3rd down and like 15, and he's like backing up as the player is running towards him. It's like, no, you got to go attack Cole. But he was a lot better in run defense than Peyton Wilson was, in my opinion. He's got more experience on early downs in the National Football League than Wilson does, and it shows. So if Wilson can't figure it out, I think you got to put Holcomb out there more often, and hopefully Harrison can get back as well to help in run defense as well. So I think that these are kind of some things, guys, that can really help out the Steelers' run defense immediately, because Cam Hayward is doing a pretty decent job. T.J. Watt's doing a pretty good job as well. They're running away from T.J. Watt, by the way. That's how much teams respect Watt as a run defender. I thought before he got injured, Highsmith was holding up. I thought Herbig held up pretty decently. Maybe some of the rotational guys, Logan Lee, Daniel Quale, and Loudermilk weren't doing a great job up front either. But I think if you just make this switch where you put Y.A. Black at nose tackle, you put Benton at the 5 technique, and then you play Holcomb on early downs and put Wilson back in that kind of blitzing linebacker, coverage linebacker, 3rd down linebacker role that he played last year, I think that instantly makes this Steelers defense better and might just end up fixing it. Overnight here. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. What is your confidence level that Pittsburgh will fix their run defense? Put it on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm guessing I'm going to get a lot of 1s because I know not a lot of people are too high on Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin right now. But let me know what you guys think, guys. Your confidence level, Pittsburgh will fix their run defense. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. While I'm telling you about Prize Picks, let me know your confidence level in the Steelers defensive coaching staff. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Prize Picks. And guys, you and I, we make decisions every single day. But on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Football season is finally here, and you better believe I'm going to be getting my Prize Picks lineups in all season long. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks also puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And a new feature from Prize Picks that I absolutely love is injury reboots. There's nothing worse than putting in a play and then the player gets injured and it completely ruins it, right, guys? So if one of your players leaves the game in the first half with injury on Prize Picks and doesn't return, Prize Picks isn't going to count it as a loss, which is one of the features that I absolutely love from this app. So you guys can take a look at my Monday Night Football projection for tonight's games. I'm going to take the less on Bucky Irving rushing yards, the more on passing touchdowns for Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud, the more on punts from Riley Dixon, and the less on punts from Tommy Townsend. So you guys can download the app today. It's free to download, guys. Super easy to use as well. So use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on the Prize Picks app today. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Now, moving on to some of the other issues that I saw on the film for the Steelers is you got to fix the deep crosser coverage, because they've been burned on it not once but twice so far this season, once per game in the first quarter, where the opposing team is running opposing crossers deep, and the Steelers have a single high safety, and apparently the Steelers are teaching their single high safety to cut the underneath crosser, all right? And that's what they've been doing those first 2 weeks. But what that does, especially when you're playing outside leverage with your corners, is that the over top crosser is going to be wide open because that corner is going to be trying to catch up to that player. I believe the first week it was Garrett Wilson, and then I think it was Torrey Horton. It was not even like a fast receiver. Jalen Ramsey couldn't keep up with him because he was playing outside leverage. So the Steelers need to address this. They probably need to know that opposing offenses are going to take advantage of this as long as they possibly can. Until they can show that they can stop it, teams are going to continue to put this in their game plans against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So hopefully Terrell Austin and Mike Tomlin see this deficiency that they have had, and they have created within their scheme, and they better come up with a solution to help fight it here. And probably you have the safety help going towards the most dangerous target is probably the way that you handle that situation. But then, another thing that was kind of a weakness in the passing defense for the Steelers is you got to secure the middle of the field. I mean, Cooper Kupp barely had any production at all in week 1, and then he lights it up in week 2 because he just gets these little deke and dunk underneath kind of middle types of passes. And once again, this goes towards the linebackers in the middle defenders there in the Steelers defense. And also it has to do with scheme as well. Like the Steelers are just showing a little bit too much pre-snap, and they're just allowing too much space in the middle of their defense for guys like Sam Darnold. And you know what, man, like Tanner Engstrand and Clint Kubiak, two really good offensive play callers in my opinion. They're going to take advantage of the space that you give them, and Sam Darnold's a hell of a thrower over the middle of the field, and that's what we saw yesterday afternoon. And then another thing here, guys, is that the blitz isn't getting home enough for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I think part of the reason why they went out and got Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey is because they want to play a lot more man coverage, and we have seen the Steelers play a lot of man these first 2 games, and they've been doing a lot of man blitzing, but, kind of the benefit of that is that, you hope that those guys hold up on the back end, and you're hoping that the blitz can actually get home. And right now, the Steelers only have 3 sacks through 2 games with a blitzing percentage of over 40%. I mean, they're blitzing pretty much 40% of the time on defense, which is a pretty darn high percentage. And they're not really getting the production that they're hoping to get out of that. Usually if you send extra rushers, you want to be able to get to the quarterback, pressure the quarterback, force them into tough positions. But the rush isn't getting home fast enough. B, guys that do get home don't finish the job. Patrick Queen yesterday missed a big sack opportunity in the 4th quarter when the Steelers were trying to come back. And then also, C, the back-end coverage needs to be better. All right, Jalen Ramsey, I think he allowed 9 catches on 11 targets in his area yesterday. Like, that's just not good enough. He did have the interception. And he did make some impact plays like Jalen Ramsey does, but he also gave up the touchdown to Torrey Horton. Again, we talked about why that's not all his fault. I thought his coverage on JSN on that deep shot was pretty good. It was just a nice catch from Smith and Jigba. But overall, guys, the coverage obviously has not been good enough on the back end, especially in man. And guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson have really taken advantage of that man coverage throughout these first 2 weeks. Another thing here is that you just now moving on to the offensive side of the ball and the bad stuff on that side, the Steelers just couldn't get Seattle out of their 2 high coverage shells. They tried running the ball on first down when Seattle wanted to play their 2 high shells, and they couldn't get them out of it. Like, they were running it with Kenneth Gainwell, and it would be like a 1 or 2 yard gain, and it wouldn't be enough. And Jaylen Warren actually did a pretty decent job yesterday, in my opinion, on the ground. But, whenever you're giving half the carries to Kenneth Gainwell, your run game's not going to be overly effective, right? So I think in future weeks when you play defenses like this that like to play 2 high coverage, you got to do a better job of running the football on early downs when they go to those 2 high shells. And then another thing on offense is just too many wide receiver errors. Whether you're talking about Calvin Austin not staying in the flat, abandoning his responsibility, tipping the ball in the air for what would have been a touchdown to Pat Freiermuth in the end zone on an awesome scramble play from Aaron Rodgers, by the way, to just good old drops, right? You got DK Metcalf that had 2 drops yesterday. Pat Freiermuth had a drop on a beautiful deep ball from Aaron Rodgers. You had a drop from Kenneth Gainwell. You had multiple drops in this football game, guys, and a lot of wide receiver error, which obviously needs to be cleaned up in the weeks to come. And then, unfortunately, guys, Troy Fautano had a rough week. He really did. He allowed multiple pressures, especially to Boye Mafe, who had a really good week for the Seattle Seahawks. He's had a really good start to his 2025 campaign, but, you draft Fautano in the first round to handle really good edge rushers like Mafe and the guys that they got there in Seattle, and he didn't do a good enough job of that, so hopefully he's able to turn things around. Now, coming up here, I'm going to tell you about some of the good things that I saw from the Steelers film, because it's not just all bad, guys. There is good, and I think both sides of the discussion need to be had here if we're going to have an honest, in-depth, nuanced discussion about what we see on the film. But make sure you guys click that subscribe button, because if you guys want level-headed, nuanced, in-depth Steelers content every single day, that's what we try to provide for you guys here on Steelers Talk. We put out at least 1, but usually 2 videos on this channel every single day. Breaking news coverage every time the Steelers make a move. We go live multiple times a week, including for our live watch parties for every single Steelers game. And it's all 100% free, guys. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and join the Steelers Talk family for nuanced, in-depth Steelers content. So now let's talk about what did go well for the Pittsburgh Steelers, because yes, we acknowledge the bad, but we also acknowledge the good. And I feel like a lot of the good is being forgotten based on, the fact that the Steelers lost the football game in an embarrassing fashion with a lot of kind of silly mistakes, but there was some good to take away on the film yesterday. First of all, there was flashes of good run defense. All right, we saw Y.A. Black show some really good things in terms of holding blocks, which makes me think that he would be an excellent nose tackle here in Pittsburgh. We saw Keanu Benton as a disruptor at times, get in the backfield with quick wins in run defense. We saw Patrick Queen have a pretty decent day as well, getting into the backfield, making some plays happen, all right? So it wasn't all bad in the run defense department. Obviously, Kenneth Walker absolutely killed you with over 100 yards, but Zach Charbonnet barely got anything on the day. So, I want to acknowledge some of the good stuff that we did see from the Steelers' run defense. It just needs to be way more consistent. Then we get to the fact that the turnovers were back. I mean, remember last year, guys, when we had that stretch, I think it was like 5 games in a row where the Steelers had at least 3 turnovers. Well, we got 2 of them this past game here, and they were both earned, all right? That was Jalen Ramsey sticking in the hip pocket of Cooper Kupp and then snatching that thing out with outstretched arms. That's an earned interception right there. That's not a gift from Sam Darnold. And then another one, you get a quick pressure from Cam Hayward. He gets his paw on the football. Nick Herbig is right there to get the interception. Those are 2 very earned interceptions from the Steelers that are not gifts from the opposing team, all right? I think a lot of the turnovers that the Steelers gave the Seahawks were kind of like gift kind of turnovers. I think the Steelers earned both of their turnovers yesterday, which is a really good sign that we could see more of that this season. Another thing that was a positive is I think Watt on film looks a lot better than what he looked like in the stat sheet, because obviously, just 2 pressures is what PFF gave him. No sacks, no TFLs. And obviously you want to see that production from somebody that's making so much money. I understand that, but there was a couple of pressures yesterday where it was really, really great stuff from TJ Watt. He had some really good stuff in the run game again this week. Obviously he hasn't had the forced fumbles that we're used to, the sack production that we're used to, the TFL production that we're used to from him. And I'm hoping, based on what we're seeing from the film, he still looks good on film to me, guys. He still looks explosive. He still looks like defenses or offenses are really respecting him, putting a lot of chip help on him. So offenses are still very afraid of him. So I still think he's going to be an impact later on down the road, and I do expect that production to tick up in the weeks to come. Then we get to Nick Herbig, who I thought looked awesome. He consistently won around the edge with speed. He also had that interception as well. I think he held up in run defense as well. That's been a big knock on Herbig, even going into the league from college, was that he wasn't going to be able to defend the run. I thought he held up pretty decently in this game. Then you get to Queenie, who plays off-ball linebacker, had a tough week 1 along with Peyton Wilson, but I thought he played a lot better this week. Now in coverage, you could tell he was hurting with that rib injury a bit, and he wasn't moving the way that he wanted to, and he was a second late on a couple of pass attempts from Darnold over the middle. But in terms of the run defense, he was playing with great instincts. He knew when to shoot gaps. He knew when to go out and make a play when he had an opening, and then he also knew when to kick back a little bit and play it a little bit more conservatively and smart, making sure that he didn't create a run lane for Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet. So I thought Queenie looked a lot better in run defense. So that's a positive. And if you guys want to help out the channel today, guys, you appreciate our content, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. I greatly appreciate all the support you give to the channel. And if you click that thumbs up icon, it tells the YouTube algorithm to push this video out to other Steelers fans like yourselves. So it really does help us out, helps us grow the channel. So if you want to help us grow, click that thumbs up icon. Finishing out here with a couple of offensive good points here that I want to point out. It was a better week from Broderick Jones. It wasn't perfect. He's still dipping his head way too much. He's still, not using his hands effectively or as effectively as he could. But it wasn't a disaster like it was in week 1. So I will take competent performance and okay performance over disaster any day of the week, and hopefully he continues to build as the season goes on. When it comes to Aaron Rodgers, I thought he wasn't nearly as bad as maybe the narrative coming out of that game would make you think, with just 17 points. He should have had 2 touchdown passes. The second one would have been an awesome play, corkscrewing his body to get it to Pat Freiermuth. If Calvin doesn't put his hand out there to tip it up in the air, that is pretty much a guaranteed touchdown right there. for Rodgers in the offense, and that completely changes the game. He had an unbelievable throw down the field to Pat Freiermuth that was dropped while rolling out to his right. He had a really great throw rolling out to his left to Jaylen Warren that turned into like a 70-plus yarder. He had a really nice throw on fourth down to Calvin Austin over the middle in a desperate moment with the defense playing back. Like, there was a lot of good stuff from Aaron Rodgers yesterday. It's just, like I talked about earlier, the wide receiver errors, the lack of protection at times from Fautano, it just kind of culminated in kind of a tumultuous day on offense, to say the least. It's got to be better moving forward, and Rodgers wasn't perfect. He had a really bad turnover-worthy play trying to get the ball to Roman Wilson on a ball over the middle. He needs to play better, no question about it, but I don't think it was nearly as bad of a performance as some Steelers fans are making it out to be. And then speaking of Jaylen Warren, he's our best offensive player, all right? And I think Aaron Rodgers is actually pretty close to that. Rodgers has been a big bright spot for this offense the first 2 weeks, but Jaylen Warren, man, he's been absolutely fantastic. I mean, he averaged over 6 yards a touch in week 2 versus the Seahawks. He was unbelievable as a pass catcher, jumping over guys, picking up first downs, making guys miss. He was pretty efficient as a runner as well. I just think that Arthur Smith or Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers offense needs to find as many opportunities as they possibly can to feature this guy in their offense, because he can certainly handle that number one running back workload, and he can handle it with grace and with efficiency and, frankly, with explosion. So great stuff from Jaylen Warren, and you got to really feature him the rest of the season. So true or false? Let me know down there in the comment section. Jaylen Warren is Pittsburgh's best offensive player right now. Type T for true or F for false. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. We'll finish up today's news and rumors segment here on Steelers Talk by going over some injury news here. There's some big injury news in the AFC North here, man, as Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow has turf toe that requires surgery. And according to the reports coming out, he will miss at least the next 3 months of the NFL season, which, of course, is most of the rest of the regular season schedule. So if you're a Bengals fan, that's really, really tough, especially given the amount of defensive talent that the Bengals have, or should I say lack, on that roster right now. And, what that means, guys, is that Burrow's expected to miss not one but both of the Bengals' matchups with the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, making those matchups a little bit more favorable for the Steelers. The Steelers' offense has traditionally ripped apart that Bengals defense over the last several seasons, even with guys like Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Russell Wilson, and the like. But, obviously with Joe Burrow not on the other sideline, you definitely have a better chance of coming out with a W. But it also means that Cincinnati's season in the AFC North is likely over. I think Jake Browning is a pretty good backup quarterback, but with the defense as bad as it is in Cincinnati, it's just a tough situation, man, where I just don't think Browning's going to be able to hold up that unit, even with guys like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins to throw to. I think Browning will play pretty decently, but it won't be enough to win a lot of these ball games. And I think Cincinnati is all but out of the AFC North race at this point in time, unless Browning really balls out or the defense steps up in a major way. Then another break for Pittsburgh is Vikings quarterback J.J. McCarthy is going to miss 2 to 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain that he suffered last night on Sunday Night Football versus the Atlanta Falcons. And, of course, the Vikings are slated to play the Steelers in 2 weeks in Ireland. So that means that the Steelers are going to be playing a quarterback that looks like a leprechaun, Carson Wentz, there in Week 4 in Dublin. Maybe that's good news. Maybe that's bad news. Maybe he'll bring the luck of the Irish to the Vikings. I mean, I don't know, man. But Carson Wentz, not a good quarterback, backup level guy. Maybe by that point, rookie Max Brosmer is in there. And honestly, I don't want to see Brosmer. I'd much rather see Wentz because Brosmer looked pretty darn good in those preseason games. But Wentz grew up a Vikings fan, so good opportunity for him. But it's also a pretty lucky break for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Even though I can't necessarily say the Vikings offense looked great with McCarthy in there, and I'd probably still favor the Steelers going up against McCarthy in that putrid Vikings offense in Week 4. But now you got a backup quarterback in there. It's certainly not great news for the Vikings either heading into that matchup. So you take a look at the next 4 games for the Pittsburgh Steelers here. There's no excuses, right? You got Drake May, who is definitely the best quarterback you're facing over the next 4 weeks, but he's a young quarterback, and Mike Tomlin has an excellent record versus first and second year quarterbacks. Then you got Carson Wentz, who hasn't been a bona fide starter in this league for multiple seasons. Then you got Joe Flacco, who also hasn't been a bona fide starter for multiple seasons. but he is this year. And then you got Jake Browning for the Cincinnati Bengals and a terrible defense to go up against as well there in Cincinnati. So you look at this 4-game stretch, there is no reason why Pittsburgh can't win all 4 of these games and that they shouldn't go at least 3-1. And I think that the Steelers really do need to go 3-1. And honestly, with the Steelers defense looking to kind of fix some things right now, try to get right, I think that this is kind of a gift from heaven here where the Steelers have a chance to really get right here against some poor quarterbacks, really build up some confidence and some chemistry among this new group, fix some things with their run game, do all the things that they need to do before they face a gauntlet of tougher teams in the second half of their schedule. Baltimore twice. You got Buffalo. Indianapolis looks like that's not going to be a gimme game either. Los Angeles. You got a lot of tough games down the stretch this season. So you got to start stacking up these wins. You got to set that foundation for success and for a playoff berth this year. It all starts these next 4 weeks right here in Pittsburgh. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. What will Pittsburgh's record be over the next 4 games? They could very easily win all 4 of these next 4 games, guys. But obviously you got to take them one at a time. You got to go out and get these wins. You can't take anyone lightly in this league, especially when there's games that you should be winning from a talent perspective. So let me know what you guys think. Do they go 4-0, 3-1? Do you think that they stink it up and the season's effectively over? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And I want to thank all the real ones for sticking with me here. It's a little bit of a lengthy one today. Lots to talk about from the film from week 2. Lots to talk about with some of the injury news around the league. So I want to thank you for making it with me here to the end of today's show. Type real one down there in the comment section if you haven't already. If you made it to the end of today's show. And make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we got more extensive Steelers coverage coming your way all throughout this week and the 2025 NFL season.